Hi everyone, it's Koby Stevens here. I just want to jump in quickly and say a massive thank you for joining us. For almost a decade, I was fortunate enough to play Australian rules football. Before in 2018, I had to retire after a string of concussions.
And Koby Stevens has revealed his regret at keeping concussion symptoms a secret.
The Remade is a series born from that journey. Over the last 5 years, I've travelled the world searching for healing and meeting some of the most inspiring, resilient, and courageous people I've ever known. People who've not only challenged the way that I see the world, but people whose stories deserve to be told. And just quickly before we get into this episode, I need to say a massive thank you to our major sponsor, Villalici, a visionary non-profit building the first ever community designed for adults living with TBI. Their mission? To offer more than a place to live, but a place to grow and belong. If this message resonates with you, visit villalici.org to support the movement.
A lot of the work I do with athletes is around our human wiring, and this human wiring that's for survival. It's not actually, we're not wired to be great football players and Formula One drivers, we're wired to stay alive.
You work with Oscar Piastri, who's an absolute demon at the moment.
Yeah.
What have you found with working with the top athletes in the world is the best way to manage fear?
It doesn't matter if I am with a Formula One driver, an AFL player, an Olympic athlete, fear is fear. A lot of athletes reach that space of being a warrior. They go out to battle and they're in their process and they're feeling the fear and they're moving through the fear and they're controlling what they can control. Then there's an athlete that moves from warrior to magician. And the magician is the athlete, or it's the human, who has this deep, deep belief that it's all working out perfectly for me.
Thanks for coming in, man.
Hey, Cobes.
How are you?
Good. Yeah, great to sit with you and chat again.
Yeah, I know, it's been a few times lately.
Yeah.
I want to start it off. You've been many things over the years, a mother. You've worked with some of the best athletes in the world on preparing their minds for sport. But who is the Emma Murray that we don't see as the performance mind coach?
Oh, you know, as soon as you get asked a question like that, you reflect on the immediate week you've just had, I think. To go, who is she? She is the person who has spent a lot of time in paralysed overwhelm this week because I'm trying to juggle 4 children and a really demanding job, an incredible job, but, you know, a more than full-time job. Still in what you could consider the early stages of a marriage separation. So the Emma Murray is like all of us, layers upon layers of competing stuff that I'm just trying to do my best.
I've always thought about, I was lucky enough to work with you for, I think, 2 years in the final parts of my career, but then outside of that as well, resetting my life after obviously a pretty tumultuous period, trying to work out who I was and all that sort of stuff. And I can only imagine working with those sort of people, plus really high demanding athletes, can be pretty a lot for you as a person.
Yeah, I mean, the athlete stuff's easy. It's like a formula. I know it. I feel like I know how to help someone perform at their best. I can see it clearly. That's the easy piece for me. It's really structured and orderly. It's the 4 children. It's the unpredictable world of being a working parent that is, you know, and my parents are getting older, so, you know, juggling a whole lot of things. But the athlete piece, give me that every day of the week.
I don't think a lot of people wouldn't know your story when it comes to your kids, especially Will. I think it was January 17, 2016, you had a pretty bad phone call. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like all parents, your life with children are full, it's busy, it's bouncing from one sporting extracurricular activity to another. And I think that's coming up 8 years ago now. Wow. I remember the day, I can nearly close my eyes and see it, like it's happening right now in this moment, summer's day, Sunday afternoon, and I was in my office. My office was like at the front of the house, and I was tidying my office. It was a January, and I was sort of getting back into life. And one of my sons, so Will, was 14 at the time, or 2 weeks shy of his 14th birthday, so 13 years old, and one of his friends comes running into my office. He's really out of breath. And he starts telling me this random story. He's like, you know, Emma, do you remember this girl? I can't even remember her name. And she went to primary school with us. You know, these boys were like going into their second year of high school. And remember, she went overseas with her parent. And I'm like, Harrison, what are you talking about? And he's out of breath and he's telling me this story. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, well, she just called me from the beach and there's been a horrible accident and Will's jumped from a pier. And as he said that, my phone rang, and it was Will's father. And he said, I'm at the beach, Will's has an accident. And I said, yeah, I know. And he said, it's really bad. And in the moment that he said that, it was like something comes over you and you go into a mode of like, right, I gotta get organized. Like I packed a bag to go. And Nick said he's in the ambulance. We're going to the hospital, the Royal Children's Hospital, and packed a bag. My 2 younger children at the time, my eldest daughter was at a rowing camp, so she wasn't home, and the 2 younger children were at a friend's house. Packed a bag. I rang my parents and said, we've got to go. But as I was getting my bag, our landline called. It was a time where people used landline. Yeah. And I picked up the landline, and it was a parent from school, and they're like rambling. They're like, Emma, you know, I was at the beach. And he was a marketing manager for one of the snowfields. And he's like, you know, this happened all the time at the snowfields, and, you know, you'll get compensation. And like, he was obviously in shock. Yeah. And I'm like, what the heck is happening? And I remember that drive to the hospital, just trying to stay really like centered and still, as if I knew that I was going into something that I needed every facility for. So, you know, and we get to the hospital, and very quickly you're talking about, not is my son going to be paralysed, but is he going to be paralysed from the chest down, or is he going to be paralysed from the waist down? And you all of a sudden are wishing for him to be paralysed from the waist down, not paralysed from the chest and shoulders down, all in a blink of an eye. Yeah. So that was that day in a nutshell.
And what does that do to the inside of a mother when?
Yeah, I mean, it was. You know, they walked us to the MRI. The MRI was like when they're going to tell you what your fate is. Yeah. And I was there, and I was with, you know, my husband at the time, and I was with my parents, and we were walking down the hall to the MRI, and I remember just sort of stopping, grabbing us all and saying, okay, whatever happens right now, we have to stay together. Like, we have to not turn on each other. We have to get through this. And you just switch into a mode that is something that you've never experienced before. You don't know that you've got it in you. And it's like we've all walking around with this little locked part of ourselves, and in that moment it gets unlocked and you have to tap into resources that you didn't even know you had.
What about when did you find out that Will was going to be a quadriplegic?
So they have surgery that night. Yeah. So they can see on the MRI that it's a spinal cord injury. Yeah. And they take him into surgery, and after surgery they put him into an induced coma to give the body a chance to rest. And they always talk very non-confirmed, because there's always an element of like, is there spinal shock? What are we actually seeing? They don't want to commit to sort of anything. And you know, you don't know what it's like to have a kid in ICU until you're the parent with a kid in ICU. So you find yourself in ICU and you can't stay there, and you can't, this was the most crazy thing. Your child is in a coma and they're sort of sending you home to sleep.
Yeah.
And it's, whilst he's in a coma, conversations are around what does this actually mean, and so there's a moment in time where they're like, okay, well, we're waking Will up. You're 14, you know, he's still 13 at that stage. Your 13-year-old son, to tell him you're not going to walk again. And in all the moments that I've gone through, that moment, I just couldn't cope with. And I remember walking into the Royal Children's Hospital. It's like, oh, you know, we have diary appointments. My diary appointment is at 10 o'clock this morning. I'm waking up my child from a induced coma to tell him he will never move or feel anything from the chest and shoulders down. Like it was like an appointment. That's what we're going to. And I was walking into the hospital, and, you know, I'm in the foyer of the hospital, and I just dropped to the ground and start crying, like hysterically crying, not wanting to go into that moment. And a cleaner came and sort of was trying to placate me, and a mother and her son came up, and they sat with me, and they were telling me that this young son who was sort of Will's age, was saying to me, I've never been out of hospital. I've been in hospital my whole life, and I've just been told this morning that I'm well enough to go out into the world, and I'm terrified. And he's telling me all of this, and I'm thinking, what am I doing? Like, I'm sitting in this foyer with these people trying to placate me and telling them their story. Meanwhile, I should be up in the room with my son. And it was in that moment, it was like I was outside of myself, thinking, what am I doing? And I just thought, I just have to get there to my son. And it was, I don't have a memory of telling Will. I think I possibly may have stayed out of the room. I think I avoided it altogether. But they obviously know what they're doing. They bring them out of a coma enough so that they hear it, but they don't quite understand it. And it's and Will developed pneumonia from swallowing water at the beach. Yeah. So he all of a sudden went from being told you're not going to move and feel anything to now you're in a fight for your life because you can't cough because of the paralysis, and we're going to start, you know, trying to clear the pneumonia. So it was hectic. It was crazy. I can't imagine. And I felt so angry at everyone in the hospital. You'd go into a tea room and there's other mothers of really sick children, but I felt like I had it the worst. Because spinal cord injury, there's no cure. Like, you're here, your child has cancer, but maybe they'll recover. But I felt like I was the worst done by everyone in that hospital.
And how do you go from this place, I guess, as a mother you'd want to fix, right? But you can't. It's like, how do you go from that place of going, all right, well, we can't fix this. What's, you know, the shift in that to protect your son who's gone through that, you know? Yeah,
I mean, a lot of the work I do with athletes is around our human wiring, and this human wiring that's for survival. It's not actually, we're not wired to be great football players and Formula One drivers. We're wired to stay alive. And I think in that moment, your biology kicks in, and your biology of a mother is to protect and nurture and keep your child alive. And so you go into fix-it mode, but it's coming from a place of survival, just trying to, I think we see other people's journey before we've gone through trauma as a parent, and we're blessed enough to have had nothing happen to our child. We look at other families and we think, oh, I don't know if I would do that. I don't know how they find that fight in them. But you find it because I think it's biology, and I think it's purely wired into you. And people say, oh, I did it because I loved my child. I don't think it's love. I think it's just straight up science.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
You know.
Yeah. No, I've been reading a book lately, and there was this amazing quote that you wouldn't go to the gym to lift feathers, and strength comes from lifting heavy things. And it really resonated with my journey and what I've been on, but everything we always talk about, and that where does this strength come from, these tragedies and educating people around our stories. But I guess there would have been this huge amount of fear that has now transpired over the last 6 years of your journey with this, and how have you dealt with that?
Well, I think the whole, going to the gym and lifting strong, some of us are forced into a situation where you've got to lift things that perhaps you don't have the strength to do, but you find a way to lift those things. And I feel blessed. You see the person who is prepared to do the hard work and come out of the gym having lifted the heavy weights. They're stronger for it, and they live a more higher functioning life because of it. And I think as humans, we are inherently wired for comfort. That is that survival wiring. We want comfort. We don't want to go to the gym. Who wants to go to the gym and lift heavy things? If we didn't have to, if we could live really well without doing that, that's what we would choose. And so all of a sudden, for some people, they find themselves in a circumstance you did. I got to lift heavy here. I don't have a choice but to lift heavy here. And you get the gains from that. I got the gains of, this perspective around life and what I want out of life. I learnt new things about myself. I learnt things about my children. I got to interact with people in different ways because I was forced to go into the gym and lift heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have experienced that as well. You didn't choose it. Who would choose your journey on an everyday basis?
No, I wouldn't choose it, but I don't look back at it now and go, damn, I wish that didn't happen.
Yeah, I say it all the time. I would give spinal cord injury back every day of the week, but could I keep the growth and the strength that has come from that? Yes, but we don't get the gains without lifting heavy. And I feel blessed for that. I really do. I'm fortunate for that.
What about your work with athletes? What's that fear taught you that can relate to the athletes that you work with that comfort never could?
Well, it doesn't matter if I am with a Formula One driver, an AFL player, an Olympic athlete, fear is fear. Yeah. And, I remember an email I received when Will was injured. And after Will was injured, I would sort of write a bit on social media. It got some following, and I would just write what I'm experiencing. And this email was from someone over the other side of the world, and she said, I have a fear of woodworm, which I think is like termites, I'm presuming. I have a fear of woodworm. I haven't left the house for 5 years, and I really resonate with your words. And it was in that moment that I really thought, wow, there is no measurement of fear. Her fear is very real for her. Will's fear is very real for him. An athlete's fear is very real for them. Yeah. And it's not that our fear is worse than yours. Fear is fear, and it is in us. And we need it. We need fear. What fear has taught me is that it makes us move quickly. Yeah. It makes us take action. And again, that's our wiring. If there is something chasing me, I'm running really fast. Yeah. And so comfort, as humans, we want comfort. We want to catch the prey without being chased by the predator. We want our kids to be successful without them ever being challenged. We want, to have the elite career and be the best at what we do without ever being not selected or without having the injuries. That's what we want as humans. But we have to understand, if we get what we want without the struggle, without the pain, without the fear, we end up the caveman who's fat, lazy, sloth, a gluttonous. And it doesn't work like that. And whilst we think we want that, that's not helpful to us. And I think what Will has taught me, and I feel like what has made me so great at working with athletes is the lessons I've taken from Will. Because what I've learned is that you can have that fear and you can have everything taken away from you. And when you get really laser focused on just that next step, that small piece, what can I do? What can I still do in this moment? Then we can slowly make gains. But it's a human that just wants to catch the prey without ever having to, you know, face any challenge that gets tripped up.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of grateful that I don't have to live life like that because of Will's experience. It sucks too. Like, it's hard. You would know that. Sometimes you don't want to have those feelings and those fears, but yeah.
What have you found with working with the top athletes in the world is the best way to manage fear? Like, you know, we've worked on meditation and all sorts of things, but you work with Oscar Piastri, who's an absolute demon at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, what are the top 5% doing what the others aren't that are managing fear on that level?
So firstly, it's acceptance. Like, you know, in the world, we hear a lot about gratitude. Be grateful. And gratitude is really powerful.
Yeah.
But I found, and after Will was injured, a lot of people were like, well, be grateful that he's alive. And I'd be like, I'm not fucking grateful he's alive. Yeah. That I'm just, and if I'm really honest, I don't know whether I thought Will being alive was the best thing for him or the family. Right. Yeah. You know, he would be horrified to hear that, I think. But that was my own fear of, like, I just wanted the pain to go away. I didn't want me to feel the pain. I didn't want Will to feel the pain. And so perhaps if, you know, the outcome was different, none of us, we would feel pain of grief, but that felt like that had a distance to it. Eventually it would sort of be in the distance where this injury and pain was going to be very real every day. That's what I felt. When people tried to help me by tapping into gratitude, I couldn't access that. And so I had to get really good at acceptance. And acceptance for me wasn't about one moment. It wasn't just one moment where I was like, okay, I've accepted this has happened to my child. Acceptance was something that I chose every single day. And it was like neutralizing the environment for me. It was like, okay, this isn't horrific, but it's not great. It just is. And what can I do now to move forward? So when an athlete is in that extreme level of fear, and their fear for an athlete is like fear of failure, fear of what people are going to think of them, fear of not getting the success that they want, having deep acceptance that I actually can't control the outcome is the first step in managing that fear. Acceptance that I can control my process, but I cannot control whether that beats that opposition or that gets the job done today. And that sounds easy. I'm telling you that really quickly, but that can be a lifelong practice in itself. Yeah. But you asked me what separates the top sort of 5%. That's not what separates the top 5% in my eyes. A lot of athletes can reach that acceptance, and I can't control it. But I talk about with an athlete moving from warrior to magician. And it's like a lot of athletes reach that space of being a warrior, you know, where they go out to battle and they're in their process and they're feeling the fear and they're moving through the fear and they're controlling what they can control and they're working really hard at that. That's a warrior to me. And they're great. They're like elite, they're amazing. But then there's an athlete that moves from warrior to magician. And the magician is the athlete, or it's the human who has this deep belief that it's all working out perfectly for me. Yeah. And it's like, it's just, and I don't actually know what that is, and I don't need to know what that is.
Some people
it's like, it's just like, I don't know how this is going to play out, but I know, and that's an energy for them.
I always felt so jealous of those types.
Yeah.
There was obviously, every time at every football club I played at, there was 2 or 3 of them people, and you're just like, man, what is it? Yeah. Like, there is something about you that either doesn't give a fuck, or just has this innate mental toughness that is just...
Yeah, and it's not giving a fuck, because they do give a fuck. And it's cellular. It's like this it's like I just so know with every fibre of my being that this is working out for me. Yeah. but they also have no attachment to what that looks like, and they don't need it to look a particular way. And that's when they just drop into complete flow. Because they are so in this space of, I actually don't need to try and control how this works out.
Yeah.
Because it's going to work out perfectly anyway. And that is the top 5. It might not even be the top 5%, to be honest. It's like the top 1%. When I meet an athlete and they have a connection to religion, any religion, I'm like, yeah,
really?
This is good. Yeah, they can access that far more easily, because they're like, something's bigger than them.
Yeah.
Something else is in control of what's happening here. So they can hand over that fear to someone else. It doesn't belong to me. I don't need to hold that fear because someone else has got my back, and it's all working out perfectly for me.
Do you think that, like, we in the Western world are educated to deal with like grief and trauma and fear and all that sort of stuff?
No.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah.
It's like, don't talk about that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Until
it gets to it, right?
Yeah, like, I've never thought about this before, but what I want to say to you now is, I think we don't talk about it because unless you've lived it, you don't really know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, I think you can talk about it from a book and you're not going to be, it's not, I don't know, what do you... Like,
no, I honestly think exactly that. Like, unless you've lived it, it's very hard to talk about it. And I guess it's like why we have these conversations, right? I always talk to you about meeting incredible people, but who are going through things and don't know how to deal with it. And it's either this pendulum, it's like they go the one other way, where we're seeing right now, there's another ex-AFL player took his life, 2 months ago, or it's the other way, they pull themselves through. And I just was really thought about that question when we talk about meditation and how long that's been around for, and thinking about, we don't get taught that sort of stuff over here.
No, we get taught, history dates and math equations. We don't get taught to regulate this human being. And, I've talked about it a bit already, this human wiring, that is biology, and we are wired to stay alive. There's a great book called The Chimp Paradox by Dr. Stephen Peters, who had a psychiatric background, and the British cycling team leading into the London Olympics took him out of the mental health space into the sports space. And basically he's saying the paradox is that this chimp wiring, the primal wiring that keeps us alive, is terrible in a performance setting, but it's terrible in life. And we don't know how to operate it at all, and we don't understand it. But what's even worse, with the introduction of phones and everything else, we're not even aware of it. It's as if that is we're not even feeling that. And how this is, the feelings that are going around us and the thoughts that are driving these feelings are so habitual to us that they're happening on loop. We don't have awareness. And what we think is, what becomes normal for us is not natural. That's not our natural state. It's not our natural state to be in a state of constantly worrying about what people think and what I'm wearing, and am I good enough, and what if I make a mistake. That's dysregulated, but it's so normal to these people now, or to all humans now, that they're using that as their baseline. And it's wildly dysregulated. And I worry for us.
So how do we regulate that?
Well, we have to learn, like we learn any other skill. We have to learn. And why I love working with athletes is that they have a reason to learn. Yeah. So they're willing to learn. I remember working with you, Koby, and it's like, for you were so clear on what you wanted a game to look like. I could have told you that if you go and do 10 handstands and jump from that roof, you'd be like, okay, if that's going to do it, So the athlete has a compliance to them that the everyday human who's wired to be safe and comfortable, they just don't have. So we need to bring awareness into our environment. That needs to start with our children, and it needs to start in our businesses. We need to create space for them, for us to be able to access that. Now, meditation, I'm conflicted with meditation because if the whole world could meditate, that would be incredible. And I know a lot of people watching this will be like, can't connect the dots.
Yeah.
And I, like, if there was a spectrum of meditation experts, I would be low down the bottom. You know, because I use meditation as a performance tool for a lot of athletes. I use it as a survival tool for myself, but there would be people who are far more educated with me. But I like to talk about it because I think, because I'm not so spiritually evolved, I talk about it to the common person a lot.
Yeah.
More relatable. But meditation is a space where, if you were talking about the gym before, if you go to the gym and you want to get fit and you work out with the weights, you're going to get fit. If you didn't go to the gym and you're trying to get fit in your everyday life, picking up, cans in the kitchen and doing some squats every time you clean your teeth, you're going to get fit, but not as quickly. And so when we sit down to meditate, the one thing it's not is clearing our minds of thought. It's not stilling our mind.
People are going there thinking it's a drug and we need to clear these thoughts.
And I'm not very good at it because I can't clear my thoughts. One, you cannot be good or bad at meditation.
It's a big thing I had to learn,
Yeah. So I am sitting with myself as if to look at all of this stuff. And as I said before, it's become so habitual, so normal, we're disconnected from it. So it's like I'm just picking it up and I'm looking at it. And I'm wanting to jump on things and make stories about things, but meditation allows me just to see it. Now, why I'm conflicted with meditation at the moment is I feel like we're so dysregulated as humans.
Yeah.
And the athletes that are coming to me are so dysregulated. And think of dysregulated as, when I use that word, I'm hypervigilant. I'm the caveman out in the jungle that instead of like having a tiger up on the hill that I'm worried about, I've got 10 tigers around me and, and shadows over in the bush and a flood that's about to, a river that's about to flood. I am like in high alarm. And if you take someone who's on high alert and ask them to sit still, it's like...
It's hard,
it's crazy. It's
I think back to my experience. I've probably been meditating now since I met you nearly 8 years ago. At the start, I didn't understand how dysregulated I was and how my mind was overthinking absolutely everything. But it was actually scary for me to work out that I needed to sit with that.
Yeah.
And scary for me to work out that I actually was dysregulated.
Yeah.
And that has been like still an 8-year journey, and I wouldn't say I'm anywhere near like where I want to be, but learning that has been, for me, one of the most positive skills that I've had in my life, because I don't think, like I was trying to get at before, we're educated and prepare our minds for when things get tough. Yeah. Whether it be in your relationship, in communication, or whether it's like something that happens with Will, in those moments of need, when your mind needs to relax, I don't think none of us are educated to deal with that.
I know, but this is what I want people to know. We think like that's like a whole new skill I have to learn, right? I have to learn all these things and it's complicated and I don't know and I've got enough on my to-do list, I can't go and do it. What we're trying to learn is when I'm in a tough moment, so this is what an athlete is trying to learn, I'm trying to come off all the stuff and just anchor myself in the moment, because anchoring in the moment, this was something that Will's accident taught me more than anything. There is nothing too tough in the moment. There's nothing, that's not where the struggle lies. The struggle's not in the present moment. The struggle side sits outside of the moment in all of the noise, in all of the stories we're telling ourselves about that moment. I remember I would go to the door of Will's hospital room, and I would pause, and I knew I had to walk into a room and see my son lying in a bed not being able to move. Yeah. And I would say to myself, like, right here, right now, all I'm doing is walking into a room and having a conversation with my son. That's all that's happening. There is no struggle in that. That's not the difficult thing. So I don't need mental tools to do that. The mental tools that I need to develop is, how do I quieten the noise that's like, oh my God, why did you let him go to the beach? And what's it going to look like? And how's he going to cope? And that's the noise that is difficult in that moment. And, I was listening to a podcast by a Green Beret, which is the special forces, and they go into like jungles and do the hardcore terrorist, really.
Yeah.
And he was saying what he does is he has to, in that moment where he's facing death, is he has to just come to his breath, feel his feet on the ground and come like anchor on that. There's no struggle in feeling my feet on the ground and breathing. The struggle in that moment is like, what if I die? What if I never see my family again? And I wish people knew that you're sitting to meditate or you're doing the hard work so that you can make the moment really small and still, and there's no struggle in this moment.
Yeah.
And I think my whole work with an athlete is how can I get them to be in this moment at the start, on the start line of a Formula One race, and all I am doing is seeing the lights, feeling the car under my bum, noticing what's going on in the environment. That's it. I'm not trying to win. I'm not trying to get to the first corner first. I'm not trying to, overtake this person. I'm not trying to defend that space. I am just trying to see the moment. And if I see the moment and feel the moment, I'm going to know what to do in that moment because I'm good enough.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And I guess like one thing I've really learned over the last 5 years is that our brains play a huge part in this and being able to do this. And one thing I learned was that our brain it's not just an organ that's up in our head. It actually controls everything. Our thoughts, our anxiety, our depression. If I was hit on this part of my brain, I wasn't able to walk properly. If I was hit here, I might have memory loss. And that really, when I started to understand that about my brain and where it wasn't functioning properly, it really put things into perspective for me and what I needed to do. But you've worked with myself, who went through multiple concussions, and you saw me before, during and after. You've worked with multiple other athletes who have gone through it. What have you seen that concussions does to someone's mind?
I am not a concussion expert. So I'm not talking through the lens of a concussion expert. I'm talking through the lens of someone who works in a performance space with many athletes who exposes themselves to concussion. And it is the most fucked up thing. Like it's really, and I say that because it's so intangible. Like no one knows what's really going on in there, right? So if I look through my lens when I'm working with someone like you, I talk to you about what you should do. And then I walk away and I'm like, I don't know. Like, we don't even know what if he actually has a brain injury, and was that the worst thing to do, to try and tell Koby how to still his mind when he's out on the field? Should I just be telling him not to even step out on the field? And so if I'm thinking like that, working with you, imagine what you're thinking. And you've got all of these things happening to your body and your brain, and this desire and programming to want to go back out into what you've trained to do and love to do, and you've got contracts on the line, which was you, and I've got people I don't want to let down and teammates. And so I'm convincing myself I'm doing the right thing, but then there's a part of me that knows that maybe I'm not doing the right thing, because we hear those stories, but we're never there's no actual tool to tell me if I'm doing the right thing or right. So it's it's chaos. It's absolutely chaos.
What's the worst thing you've seen? Because I know you've seen a few bad things with some athletes who have been through it and what you've worked with.
I worked with an athlete who I felt like my job shifted from being a performance coach to making sure he stayed alive. Just making sure if I talk to him from the time he leaves his house to the time he makes it to the sporting arena, then I know he hasn't driven his car into a pole. And then I'm trying to do my job to support him from a performance perspective, but I'm just like, I just wanted to scream at him, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this to yourself? And then in the next breath, I'm like, you could be the best in the world at this. Like, I don't want to tell you not to do this, because you could be the best in the world. And like, who am I to take that from you? And if he could just get through one more game, if I could just help him get through one more game. And then, we sort of joked, but sort of not joking, that he was giving me his retirement speech every time he went to play. He would ring me, I'm going to retire, and justifying himself, and me trying to get him to pause 24 more hours, and then me lying in bed at night going, what have I just done? It's like we can see a broken leg. We know the journey of someone who does an ACL. And to some point we can even have an understanding of depression and anxiety. But concussion, it's just horrific.
And you've got another kid who's snowboarding as well. How do you deal with that as a mother now?
Yeah, so my youngest has chosen to be a snowboarder at a pretty high level. And I jokingly say to people, well, the definition of acceptance is like having one child who's a quadriplegic and the other child who's doing double backflips in the park on a snowboard. You know, that's just pure acceptance.
Yeah.
So I disassociate a lot. If people, I hear mothers who say, oh, I fully accept my son now he's in a wheelchair, or I fully accept, I love them the same. And I'm like, I feel guilty because I think I don't feel like that. I don't feel like I've accepted that. I don't want my son like this. Not one part of me wants my child to have this injury, and I can say out loud, he's the same person because he is, and I can say, we're not our body, but like this is very much a part of our human experience. And so having another child putting himself into a position where he is at a greater risk of that happening. And I don't stress about spinal cord injury nearly as much as I stress around brain injury.
Right.
Having a broken brain is on a whole nother level, I think.
Yeah, I guess that's probably my deepest fear, and why it took me to such dark places was that my anxiety around the future was that maybe in 15, 20 years time, my kids are going to be looking after me if I have kids, because dad's gone silly, and there's, he's put himself through 10 years of football and all these head knocks just to play a game. And that was my deepest fear, was that one day I'm going to get old and have kids and they're going to be looking after their father.
So we can see that Will's body doesn't work, and we can bring the appropriate care to deal with that. But I know until the day Will dies, I have a connection to Will that I can put things in place to deal with his body, but I have Will. But a brain injury I feel is different.
Yeah.
And
you lose, in a lot of cases, you lose who you are. And sometimes to the highest degree, where people become someone they are not.
That's right. I never have to.
And that's what scared me the most.
Yeah. And with Gus and his snowboarding, I did a lot of justification. Well, he could get injured in a car accident, and this could happen, and I do believe I don't have a right to take Gus's life away from him just because this happened to Will. Gus is on this earth for his journey. And part of that acceptance piece for me is very much, I had to get to a point where you asked me early on in this conversation around fixing it for Will. I had to get to a point where I don't have a right to fix this for Will. That's not my place to fix this for Will. But I also don't have a right to to not let Gus live. That's not my right.
Yeah.
And I strangely think, people say to me, but aren't you it's happened once so it can happen again? I sort of feel protected because it's happened once. Maybe something's going to stop us from getting struck twice.
It's funny, all the people I meet around the world, especially Kevin Pearce, the guy was a vegetable. He's back snowboarding some of the biggest mountains in the world, and this is this radical acceptance with, if I don't do that, how unhappy am I going to be not snowboarding, And that's the same as me, but it's the only way that I was able to deal with that fear and anxiety was stepping outside the box and making sure that I was doing everything to heal that. And me and you have talked about this a lot, and you know, I went and did some pretty fucking radical things, but I guess you've always been on that precipice of, if you don't feel like you're getting the right report from a doctor or something, how do we keep looking further? And I guess that was the biggest thing for me. I had to step away to a different level to find these other things.
I think that the gift of spinal cord injury is that there is no cure. So I never have to weigh up, if I do that, am I going to compromise this? There is no this. So I can do that knowing that, you know, I think about people who have cancer and there's a traditional pathway and then there's not. And sometimes I feel like they have to choose and justify and imagine going down this road and it not working, and I could have done the traditional route. So we don't have those choices. Anything we try is better than nothing. So I feel like that naturally already takes that doubt and fear away. But the biggest thing that I have learned, and I wish more people understood, was just own your journey. Hold that power in yourself. I see them the day they walk into a hospital, it's like they hand it over to other people. And it's like, you're in your body.
Yeah.
Like, I think doctors are probably on chapter 1 of what we know about the human body and the medicine world. And do we need doctors? Yes. God, Will would be not alive right now if we didn't have doctors. But you hold your power and ownership and explore and be curious, because there is so much unknown. Why can't something work?
Exactly. Yeah. Why can't?
And this Cobes, like and it goes back to what we were just talking about, letting Gus snowboard. I just think people are so stuck in the noise, the what if and only, and I can't, and this might happen, and what if that will happen, and I shouldn't, that they're paralyzed. Mm-hmm. Just take action. Try something. Yeah. And if we've handed that ownership over to someone else, we're waiting for them to tell us what to do, and we're even more paralysed. Yeah. And you need confidence to do that. Yeah. But there's no downside, I don't think.
There's no downside, and I think, but confidence, but also it gets that dire sometimes that you'll do anything to.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's what I say to people all the time. I think as humans, I talk about like life is like pretty hard going. It is.
It's hard.
It is. It's really hard.
We're getting hit from every direction, especially at the moment.
Yeah. And I think humans, we think it's hard, but we don't quite connect with the fact it's supposed to be hard. That's a human experience. As I've earlier said, we can't just get the prey without the challenge and the hunt and the predator chasing us. But we are going out into our life each day. We're facing these hard challenges. We come home, it was bad. We go to bed, we get up the next day, we do it again. Some point for some of us, for you, for me, many other people, that storm we walk out into every day just gets instantly upgraded to a hurricane. And it's like, I've just gone from a storm to a hurricane, and if I do not find the center, I'm not going to survive. And so there's a blessing in when things get really tough, is that I don't have the luxury of just hanging out in this hurricane. I need to get still, I need to get centered, I need to take ownership of my journey, and I need to really get, grounded in what I need to do here. It's when the challenge is tough, but it's still survivable, is that even a word? It's still doable, that I just sit in it. Yeah. And I just stay in it, and I look for someone else to help me, and I'm blaming, my boss, and well, they're not giving me enough holidays, and that person's not doing this. But it's when, and you've been it, you were stuck in the noise of the AFL. You wanted this, and you wanted that, and you wanted everything else, and then all of a sudden your life upgraded to a hurricane.
Yeah, pretty quickly.
And you had to get still and you had to work out what you wanted and how you wanted it to look really, really quickly.
Yeah, it took a while though, and it also comes back to this question about, it does take a while, and it took me a while, but sometimes we go to this other avenue of masking that pain, and a lot of it for me was, I was definitely running away from it, and that can also be like a recipe for disaster also, right?
Yeah, completely. Do you think that has something to do, because a lot of people that I worked with the concussion, masking is like their number one tool. They're like, they're like playing this game because I think they don't know what's going on for them.
Yep.
And they know that people can't see what's going on for them. So they're just in this charade permanently of like, life's good, I'm fine. No, you know, and they're trying to convince themselves, trying to convince other people. Do you think that's a brain injury thing? I know that it's a human thing, but I think it's a lot worse when you've got...
I think that's a very fair judgment because I was the same, and I think one thing I learned about myself and other people is that most of the time there's two of us, right? There's this person that we're dealing with underneath, and then this person that we show the world, yes, we're fine, you can't see this brain injury, whatever, but people didn't know that I was at home, passing out every time I stood up out of bed, had chronic headaches, couldn't see properly, my eyes were bad, I was dizzy all the time. But I learned to not show that to the world because I was embarrassed. Because
that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
But why? Like, you wouldn't be embarrassed if you were standing up and falling over because you've got a broken leg. So what were you embarrassed about?
I was embarrassed that 1 minute I was this 28-year-old fit footballer who was playing in front of 60,000, 70,000 people every weekend, and then I was embarrassed that the next week I wasn't that, and I couldn't get out of bed, and my name was all over the newspapers about being concussed, and there's so much commentary in the media around what comes from concussion. Really bad media around, you know, people in America going crazy and shooting their families or mental health issues, all that. And I took that on massively. I took that on massively, and that was really hard, but in the same way, it was probably the thing that really drove me to go, I'm not going to be stuck here, because I didn't want that to be the reality of my life. And I think you've probably seen it with my journey, like what I was like during that part. It's, you know, I've had other people say it to me, like just the difference, but that's been like an 8-year journey, like a 5 to 8 year journey, you know.
But I think that embarrassment, this is a thing I think with concussion, is that embarrassment and shame, because we can't see it and we don't understand it. And people think, when you say, oh, I can't come, I've got a headache, they're like, oh God, Kobe's got a bloody headache. Like, push through, have a beer, you'll be fine. And so
I was doing that. I was going and trying to drink with my friends, and it was a coping mechanism for me, but like, it would bring on like a panic attack or something, and it would blow up my brain.
But then would you think that, well, I'm weak because I'm having a panic attack? You wouldn't think, I've got an injured brain.
No, I'd instantly leave and go home and have like a panic attack, and I didn't know what was happening to me. But the fuck thing is, if they asked again, I'd try it again, and it would happen again. And I remember my best mate Campbell, he's like, man, what the fuck's going on? I'm like, dude, I can't drink. Like, I honestly, this is doing something to me. And it wasn't until that I honestly thought I was going crazy, to be honest, because I hadn't had at that point the scans that I've had now, which have showed that, no, you're not going crazy. This part of your brain is actually not working properly. It's injured. And that, when I had that, it was like this weight off my shoulders, like, oh, me as an athlete knew that, okay, I know what's broken now. What do I need to do next?
But can you think of how many people out there, the school kid who's playing footy, you know, on the weekend, gets knocked and his mates are like, oh, you're pretty soft. Like the guy at work who, you know, was mucking around with his mates at the pub and fell over and hit his head. And you just use the words, I felt like I was going crazy. It's like you're being gaslit. Like you don't, you know, you're gaslighting yourself. Like you're fine, just go and have a beer. And you must be really weak. And that is the thing that is not existent with other injuries that is there with concussion. And you're an elite athlete. You've got access to doctors and experts, and most people, they'll be lucky if they went and saw their GP. And if they did see their GP doesn't know what they're dealing with anyway.
And I think, like, for me, when I was trying to trick my brain into saying that I'm okay, that's when it was the worst. That's when I was at my lowest. It was when I was trying to do those things, and it was when I was at my darkest period of my life. And I've met incredible people around the world who have been injured. And my number one, like, piece of advice to them is, like, you need to get real with yourself.
Yeah.
This injury, because what we know about brain injuries, it's like a fingerprint. Every brain injury
Same
is
with
different.
spinal cord injury.
And I might hit one part of my brain which affects my heart rate, which affected mine. I can't get out of bed, and it's not just your thoughts and emotions. It's like these physical things that actually happen to you.
Yeah.
You need to get real with yourself and understand that the brain is the epicenter of everything you do.
Yeah.
And I always say to people, it's like, dude, unless you put your ego aside and go, I'm not that person, I can't go to the gym and smash weights at the moment, but you can be. And until I got to that point, which it took a while, like a couple of years, I was in a really, really bad place.
Yeah. It's, it's a similar journey to Will. I've watched Will, Will has goals that he wants to recover, whatever that looks like for him. And for 8 years, he's been on that journey. But I've seen when he actually takes healing as a very purposeful, deliberate, intentful thing that he's trying to do versus I'm just living as a quadriplegic. It's no different. It's like you're either living with a brain injury or concussion, or you're trying to heal it. It has to be very deliberate. It's not just if I wait and it's going to get better by itself. It's like you actually have to deliberately and purposefully educate yourself, make adjustments in your life, and put healing as what you are trying to do. Be elite at healing, I
think we're very good at tricking our brain into thinking we're okay. Like I played several games, and I know lots of people have with, blurred vision, whatever, but as humans, we're good at gaming.
But don't you think you can do that because you can't see it?
Yeah.
Like we can't trick ourselves when I can see a swollen knee or,
My dream is that every concussed player in the AFL or every person in the world who's ever had a concussion has a scan, and you can see which part of your brain is injured and what that part of that brain affects in your being, whether it's like, it's injured. That's where a lot of your anxiety is coming from, your depression, or that's why you're dizzy because this part. But that is my dream, and because it was such a huge weight off my shoulders to understand what part of my brain was injured, and had incredible people around me here in Australia and in the States, from functional neurologists or whatever, who could go, this is what we need to do to build some neuroplasticity in these areas and fix these parts of these things. And, within 3 months, my POT syndrome was gone, and then we worked on the next thing and that's...
But here's the thing. I've worked with an athlete, a high-level athlete, and every time they stepped out on the field, they could see, like, in a circle. So anything that came out of that circle, they couldn't see. So it's like they're playing at the highest level, looking through a telescope, And it wasn't like he hadn't shared that with people, but he could also pass concussion tests. And so, and we just sort of let that be. And so if that is happening at the most elite level, you're talking about now you want, the dreams of what you want it to look like. It's like, we're so far off that.
I think it's a great point. Like, I can't sit here and go, look, we're going to heal every concussion. I'm completely healed. Mine's a life journey. I don't look at it like I'm, it's like, it's something that I continually think about and worry about, and something that will always be on my mind. And, I've put habits in place to things that I think make my brain feel good. But we're so at the start of this thing, and I think we don't, science has evolved so much, but we're still learning so much. And it scares me sometimes when we aren't willing to look in other avenues and advanced science like some people are around the world here in Australia?
Something that kept me, as you would know, to get through trauma, you get little routines you do and different things. And my parents used to live up in Lennox Head, right on the beach, and I would go out to this cliff and I would stand on this cliff and I would look at the ocean and the sky and I would think, like, look at this entire world and how amazing it is. And we've got ships out there on the ocean and we've got planes in the sky. Surely we could get some really put our heads together and work out a way to heal. Will's injury is the size of the head of a pin.
Wow.
Like, surely we can do something to help that.
Yeah.
Like, surely with all the incredible things that we do in this world,
Yeah.
we could get a scan that was accessible for people with brain injury, with concussion. Like,
Well, look,
surely.
it took me to fly over to the United States several times to be able to do that, and
I think for concussion, it's our lack of awareness. So we just are not seeing. We go, oh, that's migraines, oh, that's obsessive compulsive disorder, oh, that's anxiety, but we're not putting the picture together of what's, contributing to these.
Yeah.
I think it's that lack of the ability to do that's waking people up to say, let's do something about it.
Yeah, it was like super mind-boggling for me when I had that scan that he told me that the part of my brain that was still very overactive, like a lot of it had healed, was the part of my brain that was holding trauma.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, fuck, trauma. Like, I was thinking about trauma like going to war and coming home with PTSD or, losing, your wife or something like that. But he was like, no, man, like your brain is holding a lot of trauma. And that for me was also like a revelation, just to be able to go, wow, okay, so what do I have to go focus on now to kind of look at that? And for me, I wanted to, explore alternative medicine and like psilocybin and stuff, but go to the right people to talk about these things and the right psychiatrists and psychologists, because I knew, all right, well, the rest of my brain's looking pretty good now, but there's still a very overactive part that's apparently holding trauma, and that was just a huge revelation to be able to do that.
I talk with athletes all the time that trauma gets stored in our body, and trauma, we have this definition of trauma that is, very graphic and it's extreme, but you've played in the middle of 100,000 people or 90,000 people at the MCG and you miss a goal, that's trauma.
That's a scary thought. My biggest fear playing football was taking a mark in the centre square and going back from 5 metres out and missing it. That was literally my biggest fear.
Yeah, like look at
and it happened to me once when I was a kid. I missed a goal, and I took that I was like, I didn't want to mark the football inside the square. And
it happened to you as a kid, right? Like you missed that mark, and what I want athletes to understand is at that moment that happened to you, that visceral reaction of stress gets stored in you, and so now you go through your life, and when you step back into that situation again, even though now I'm an elite athlete and I'm really trained, that I still get that it's stored in my brain, it's stored in my body, I have that trauma response. And so that's why a lot of the work that I do with athletes is at that subconscious level, through the meditation, through the visualization, through those, techniques, because we can talk about it all day, but until I get into that subconscious space and release those grips and that trauma, then unless I do that, I'm never going to reach that place of just pure free to meet the moment and be in the moment with whatever the moment brings. Otherwise, I'm stepping into each and every moment of my life with old past worries, old experiences that trip me up, traumas from when he said that and that person did this. We're bringing that into each and every moment. And when we can clear that, that's freedom.
Yeah. And I guess that just takes me to my last question. Do you think after everything you've been through with your son, all these athletes you've worked with over the years, what would you say to someone that is going through probably what they think is one of the worst days in their life, like you went through? And do you look back at that struggle as possibly sacred and something that taught you so much that you now take forward with your life?
You know, I think if we could all tap into that magician, that's where we're trying to tap into. If we can all go into every moment truly knowing and being in the energy of that everything's working out for me, but without knowing how or what, we're so busy trying to control the outcome. I'm going to get the job promotion. That person's going to say yes, they're going to do this for me. We're so attached to that. We're so grouped for that we're not understanding that struggle is there because of us trying to control the outcome. When we actually release the grip and say, who knows? I don't know how this is going to end. I don't need to know though, because it's all working out however I need to work out because I have everything I need. That's freedom.
Yeah.
And we can access that freedom in any moment of our life, no matter how big the challenge is or how small the challenge is, by truly accessing that place of who knows, I don't need to know.
Can you just give like one tip on what someone might do during a day to access that and work on accessing that?
Yeah. You know, my players have, the athletes that I work with have affirmations that they use. So affirmations, a thought we think often enough becomes a belief. And so if we choose what we want to think, then we start to believe those thoughts. So that's how affirmations are really powerful. And athletes have affirmations around, I'm the strongest, biggest, greatest, blah, blah, blah. But I always add on my own affirmations at the end of theirs. And it is, I come first in everything I do, and everything is working out perfectly for me. Perfect, thank you. And so that I come first in everything I do is simply saying, it doesn't mean I always win the race. It's just like everything I get is coming from me. It's coming to me. It's like I'm going to win, however winning looks like in this moment. I don't know what winning looks like. I don't know what first looks like, but I come first in everything I do. Everything's working out perfectly for me in my world. Perfect, thank you. That's got the gratitude attached to the magician. So they're sort of affirmations that I have people say, but I am always encouraging people to access excitement around the unknown. I'm actually excited for something I don't know what it's going to look like. So I'm genuinely try and get excited for what it's going to look like for Will, even though I don't have a picture of what healing from spinal cord injury looks like because it doesn't really exist. I'm still excited for that, and I still believe he's going to come first, whatever first looks like for him. So accessing that feeling of excitement and gratitude with no attachment to what it's going to look like. I think if people are really honest, they'll really look at what they're thinking, and this is the practice of meditation enables you to look at that. They'll realize how much they're living in trying to control everything, and they need it to look a particular way, and I've got to fix something and I've got to find the answer to this. No, I don't. Because if I'm trying to fix something, it means that there's a problem there. There is no problem because everything's working out perfectly for me. So there is no problem. Yeah. And so I want people to really embrace that this whole thing, this life, this journey that we're on, it's happening and it's going to be amazing in ways that we didn't expect. Spinal cord injury is amazing, sucks. Yeah. It's amazing. Your journey. I know what it looks like for a player to play 300 games of football and retire and be miserable, and your journey's amazing. I always say to other athletes, this is what Koby's doing. Yeah. It's amazing. It's just working out in a way that we don't know, but it's working out perfectly for us always.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, and before you take off, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the YouTube page.